I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is the Open Space Advisory Committee meeting. Today is August 19th. We appreciate members of the public here and our board members, our committee members, and everyone else, staff as well. We would, I think, best start with a roll call. Tamara?
Chair Scott.
Here.
Vice Chair Welch. Here. Member Evans. Here. Member Hall. Here. Member Inverson. Here. Member Masad. Here. Member Michael. Here. A quorum's present.
Thank you. At this point, I would ask for public comments on anything that is not an item on our agenda.
Oh, yes.
We will have public comment opportunities at each other item as well, the action items particularly. But does anybody have anything that's not on the agenda they would like to discuss or bring to the committee at this time? All right. Seeing none, we have a set of minutes from our last marathon meeting, which was June 17th, our joint meeting with Parks and Rec. Are there any comments, corrections, or changes to the minutes of June 17th? All right. Seeing no questions, is there any public comment on those minutes? All right. Do we have a motion? It's okay. You can wake up, committee.
I move to accept the minutes from June 17th, 2019.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Second.
We have a second. I think Joanne was slightly ahead of you. Margie?
Faster the buzzer.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of June 17th. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. Are there any modifications to the agenda?
No modifications, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Our items here for review, action, and discussion only, in this case, discussion only. Review and discussion regarding Kyle Navarro's Eagle Scout project for the Waterfall Trail. Greg, is that you?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So for the record, Greg Bergeron, Trails Coordinator for Parks, Recreation, and Open Space. And I'd like to introduce Kyle Navarro. Kyle has offered to help us with the Waterfall Trail. He wants to make some safety improvements to the trail, and then he also wants to offer his troop to adopt the trail long-term. So with that, I'll turn it over to Kyle.
Thank you, Mr. Bergeron, and thank you, Mr. Chair and the committee for letting me speak tonight. So again, I'm Kyle Navarro. I am a member of Carson City's Boy Scout Troop 341, and I'm doing my Eagle Scout project up at the Kings Canyon Waterfall Trail. And then, I don't have any, there we go. So getting into the location of the project is going to be based up at the Kings Canyon Waterfall Trail. So up on the picture on the left, you can see kind of the general area of where it is up at the top of Kings Canyon Road. And then getting into the picture on the right more, you can see how we're actually going to be working right at the south end of the east end of the waterfall, right at the base of it. So the 0.3 mile stretch of trail that goes right into it. So then kind of a brief overview of what the project is going to be about. So the main intent of the project is to increase public safety. That's the biggest goal of the project here. And some kind of neat history, the trail was originally built by Troop 341, and there have been various projects by Troop 341. So I think it's kind of neat that I myself get to work on that, kind of keeping that history going. And then so the project itself has two components. The first component is kind of a 2-day service product, where day one is going to be with NJROTC doing some materials moving, getting the site ready. And then day two is going to be the actual trail maintenance and reconstruction by Boy Scout Troop 341. And then the second piece of the project is going to be Troop 341 adopting that section of trail. So some of the people and organizations involved is Mr. Greg Bergeron, obviously the Carson City Trails Coordinator. Mr. Clay Grubb is going to be my technical advisor. He is with the Tahoe Rim Trail Association, engineer for them, helping to design and work with me in maintaining the trail and doing some of the work with that. And then the Carson High School NJROTC unit, and then also Boy Scout Troop 341. So kind of an overview of what the days are going to look like. Day one is going to be with NJROTC, and it's going to be a lot of gathering and moving of materials. So the two pictures that you see here are kind of where we're going to be gathering and moving materials. The picture on the left is going to be gathering rock to help expand the trail out. Then the picture on the right, you can see all the deadfall that is on the side of the trail. And later on in the slideshow, you'll see kind of the area of where that's actually at. But that's a lot of deadfall that had to be moved out of the way in order to make the improvements to the trail. And then, so day 2 is actually when the main portion of the project is going to happen with Boy Scout Troop 341. So it's going to be all the trail building and reconstruction, like I said before, and kind of just the general maintenance of the trail. As you can see, these are just 2 possible work locations that there are to clear the trail. The picture on the left, you can see that a lot of people have been cutting through the trail. And the picture on the right, you can see how the trail has become really overgrown. And then, so the other part of that is also the Adopt a Trail program. So Boy Scout Troop 341 is going to be adopting this section of trail. It's the 0.3 mile stretch of trail to the base of the waterfall from the parking lot. And the contract that was set up will be 3 times per year of service, which will be cleanup, basic maintenance, et cetera, stuff like that. And then, so before we actually get into the work on each day, going to have a safety brief to kind of go over proper use of equipment, how to protect yourself, et cetera. So covering safety equipment, gloves, goggles, et cetera, describing the scopes of work, what we're going to be doing, some of the hazards that may be present, and nutrition and hydration as well. And so now getting into the main work site. The main work site is going to be at the base of Kings Canyon Waterfall. So the picture on the left kind of shows you up into the waterfall area where, I apologize for being hard to see, but the waterfall is actually eaten into part of the trail. So one component of the project is going to be farther up the waterfall is going to be to kind of put rocks in place to guide the water away from the trail and back into the natural course of the stream, so it stops eroding away from the trail. And then the picture on the right, the deadfall earlier is shown right there on the right. So this is one of the other main areas of the project, is going to be to take out all the deadfall, move it out of the way, and expand the trail over to the right. Because up right in the corner, it gets really narrow where the rock comes out and the trail gets really pinched. So that's the main area of public safety concern, which we're trying to fix so that it's more accessible to the public. And then some of the additional work sites, since only 5 to 6 people can fit up there at one time and have a lot more scouts coming out to help, is going to be fixing a lot of the cutting that's going on the trail. So it's going to be a lot of vertical mulching and going in and defining the trail again so that people aren't cutting back and through and harming the wildlife. And thank you. Do you guys have any questions?
Kyle, thank you very much. Great project, and I really appreciate the commitment to the long-term maintenance.
Thank you.
That area is one of the nicest, prettiest places that's within a short walk for people in Carson City. It gets quite a bit of use and it gets some abuse. So thank you very much for your work.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity.
Committee questions or comments? Margie, we'll start you.
I just want to thank you for what you're doing and commend you on a well-done presentation. Is there anything you need from us?
Oh, yes. So one of the things that will be needed or will be requested is I believe it is the Carson City Community Trailer to have that equipment to use for the project. And that is the only thing.
Yeah, Greg has access to that, and whatever you need, Greg, obviously we'll do whatever we can. So thank you. Donna, did you have a comment, question?
Yes. Thank you very much. I think I turned up. That area does need a lot of help. It does get quite a bit of abuse, and the cutting of the trail can really be a problem. Actually, I worked on that trail back when. It doesn't seem like it was that long ago. I do have some questions about that pinch area that you're working on. Are you going to be removing that rock on the right? Because it's very steep right there. How are you going to widen that trail?
So the plan, talking with Mr. Grubb, my technical advisor, so the plan I think that we have come up with right now, it may change, is so day one is going to be gathering a lot of rock. So it's going to be building a rock wall there in the soil and then filling it in with dirt. So we won't necessarily be taking the rock out. We'll just be adding to the side of it. So that's why we're going to be getting rid of the deadfall so we can have that area to work and expand outwards.
Go ahead, Jeremy.
Kyle, I want to second everybody's comments on your presentation. It was really polished. I could tell that you worked on it.
Thank you.
Your public speaking skills are advanced, for your age especially. One question about the trail cutting. Has there been any thought to signage or any other means to something to post on the trail to help keep people from cutting certain parts of the trail, because what I've seen in the past is portions of trail that are historically cut, they're cut again as soon as they're rehabbed because people just don't care. One thing that I have seen that I guess a small example of what I've seen that works is on the Ophir Creek Trail at the Davis Creek Campground. The old trail that used to be just straight uphill, there were several portions of that where people would cut, and there were small signs, just 4x4s with signs that said, please don't cut the trail. And after years of using that trail, I actually noticed when those sections of trail were rehabbed and it had a sign that told people straight in their face, don't cut this, it actually helped. So, I mean, that could be something to consider.
No, definitely. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. I think something that was discussed as well, not necessarily for this project, but for an additional one for the troop, doing, since it's adopting the trail, is actually the possibility of putting in signage as well, but also doing possibly split rail fencing as well in these areas that are highly cut. It was brought up as an idea. I don't know how far that will get, but kind of to avoid the cutting, like you're saying.
Great, thanks.
Greg, you can kind of act as our liaison there in terms of anything that, might be appropriate or helpful, following up on Jeremy's comments and the work that's anticipated at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. We have discussed various options for trying to decommission those fall line trails and try to keep people off of them. So, and that includes split rail fencing and signage. So especially as the troop adopts this trail, we'll have the manpower we need to make some of those things happen. So we're looking forward to it.
Great, thank you. Any other comments from the committee? Joanne?
This is all gonna be done by hand? Talk about moving rock and building rock walls.
Yes. So yes, the plan is to have it all be done by handwork. That's where all these scouts and NJROTC cadets come in, is that they're doing projects with them in the past and working with both NJROTC and Boy Scouts. They're hard workers, but they're also safe with what they do. And I've gone up and looked at the area multiple times by myself with Mr. Bergeron, and we've come to a conclusion that it is feasible to do all the work by hand.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any public comment? Okay, this is a discussion item. Congratulations, Kyle, and we'll look forward to the results.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very
committee.
much for coming. Okay, next item, discussion only. Another Eagle Scout project. Come on forward.
So
Harry.
the Fifth Street Trailhead project, where we're making improvements to the trailhead, and we're also revamping the trail system there on the north end of Prison Hill. We're nearing completion on that, and Ari Erickson has offered to help us with the signage so we can complete that project. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Mr. Ari Erickson.
Good evening, my name is Ari Erickson.
Ari, excuse me, and thank you for being here. We appreciate you and your project, so go ahead and explain to us.
Is this on? Okay, yeah. Good evening, my name is Ari Erickson. I'm with Troop 44, and I'm trying to get my Eagle project done on the Prison Hill loop trails, and I'm going to be putting signage in, directional finding, and an interpretive sign for that. So the project is going, it says up there, it's going to be on the new Prison Hill loop trails, which are off of 5th Street, and it's going to be basically, there is 7 areas where signs are going to be needed to point hikers in the right direction. So tell them what loop they're on or what loop they're going to get onto when they come to an intersection. And that's going to be really important because the area around Prison Hill is a very nice area, but nobody really goes up there because it's not really suited for hikers. There'll also be one interpretive sign overlooking the Carson River, and that will relate to the open space and the floodplain in there. I'm hoping for this project to be completed by late September, and if it runs over into October, I'm hoping I can get it done like right at the beginning of October. I don't really want this to run into the mid of October just because I have another US project in this troop that needs to be done, and I don't want mine to get in the way of that one. And, okay, so this one, you've probably seen this map before, but it's of the trails. The red is the trails that are going to be decommissioned. They are trails for off-road vehicles that are really sandy or really steep, And the yellow are trails that are planned to be built, which are much more accessible to hikers, and they're really fun and to hike. And if you can see up there, there's intersections, and that's where the directional signs will be. So these are the trail marker options. Now, when I first started this, I discussed with Greg Bergeron that about the different signs, and he suggested that the 6-inch post would be the best. And I think I pretty much agree with that. And the reason that we came to that conclusion is that the 6-inch post is obviously more durable than a 4-inch post, but the 6-inch post is also going to be easier to get in because we don't have to, if it has to be bent or something in the ground, it's sandy and rocky, it's not going to break when we put it in there. So that's the big thing on that one. These are also the other ones, the interpretive signs. That's just what they're going to look like. I wanted to put that up there for reference as to what one might look like. And on the next one, I have a sample of the interpretive sign. So I'm just going to read this out, just so you can kind of hear how it might be read on the trail. So this is for it's an area overlooking the Carson River, and specifically it's about the floodplain and the activities that might be enjoyed along the Carson River. So it starts on the top right. The area along the Carson River is a favorite among outdoor enthusiasts. However, it has not always been this way. Before the Carson City Open Space Committee purchased over 900 acres of land along the river, the area was not as attractive to many people. Many spaces along the river were prone to flooding. Once the area was purchased for open space, several improvements were made to the shoreline to mitigate the problem. Bird watching is very popular among the visitors to the Carson River, as there's a lot of interesting species that frequent the lush riparian environment. The slow-moving waters are ideal for fishing, hosting a variety of trout and other fish, as well as beautiful scenery to enjoy while you fish. There are also several miles of well-graded trails that are perfect for running, horseback riding, bike riding, or just a relaxing afternoon stroll. I wanted to get across with this that the Carson River is a very pretty place, that it's accessible to everyone. Everyone can go there and enjoy themselves, as I feel that it's kind of a neglected area. So the project also wanted to do a slide about safety, of course, because a service project is supposed to be, positive impact. And when something goes wrong, a lot of times that's what it's focused on. So safety, the big risks are, the big four that I came up with at least, are heat stroke, exertion, misuse of tools, and snakes. And heat stroke, since we're going to be working out in the sun and it's going to be a lot of manual labor, this goes along with overexertion. Some scouts might not drink enough water, or they might do too much and get really tired, which is overexertion, and that kind of goes into avoidance. And I think the best way to avoid a lot of these things is just with a safety talk. Knowledge is power, and if you have the knowledge to avoid those, they won't happen to you most of the time with those, except for the snakes. But and with snakes even sorry, got off track. For the safety talk, just the main points I would cover is that it's very important to drink enough water, and I think that another big one is that with the misuse of tools, with the risk for that, the safety talk. If you feel uncomfortable with a tool, of course, ask someone that knows how to use it. So I think the big one is safety talk. Or safety talk, which I will give at the project when we get there. Another one is sunscreen. Since it's going to be sunny, you want to wear sunscreen so you don't get sunburnt, and protective clothing. If you wear boots and closed-toed shoes and long pants and something, a head covering, a hat or something to keep the sun off you, as well as glasses. Since we're going to be digging, you don't want to get something in your eye. Protective glasses of some type. That would be ideal. So the tools, materials, and supplies. These are three that I wanted to cover, but I kind of just bunched them up all into one slide. So the tools, I've talked to Greg about this, and he said most of these will be provided by the Open Space Committee. And there's shovels, post-hole diggers, digging bars, a jackhammer, electric drill, and electric saw. Shovels for digging just the the first part, just the sand and little rocks and stuff. Post hole diggers for, digging farther down so we can actually get the signs into the, the harder ground. And then a digging bar just for getting down, digging the hole really deep. But the jackhammer is one that I didn't actually think of until later. And that is, if there's a lot, I know up on Prison Hill there's a lot of boulders and stuff. And if there's a boulder right where we need to place a sign, it's going to be really hard to dig into the ground in a boulder. So a jackhammer would only be operated by adults, but a jackhammer would definitely be useful to dig through really tough rock or ground that might be, really packed. And the electric drill and electric saw are only for the signs at the beginning, or the electric saw to cut them to the size that we need in the hole, and the electric drill to actually place the information on the post. Supplies, I'll provide the supplies. We're gonna need lots of water, of course, because there's gonna be quite a few boys, and it's gonna be probably hot, and we're gonna be, it's a lot of physical work carrying the signs up and digging the holes. So I think a lot of water is definitely gonna be necessary. And also, I wanted to bring in some nutritious snacks. So while we're working, we can have a snack that will provide energy for the scouts instead of something that's, not really great. And then afterward, of course, a sweet treat for everyone because they worked hard. And the materials, the signs, the posts, and the information will be provided by the Open Space Division. Thank you so much for your time tonight, and I just wanted to ask if you have any questions.
Thank you, Ari. Another great project. If those of us that drive out there regularly see that that trailhead is very close to being ready to open, and so it'll be nice to have those improvements. Questions or comments from the committee? Margie?
I have a couple of questions for you, Ari.
Yes.
And one for Greg. I just think you're doing a great thing, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I want to say, don't be so wedded to one particular place to put a sign that you can't shift it by a foot and avoid that rock boulder. A foot may not make a difference.
True.
And it might make your life a whole lot easier.
Yeah, I think you're most definitely right about that. Thank you.
Greg, are they going to need to put concrete in?
No, they won't need concrete. These posts typically, it's 4.5 feet above ground and 2.5 to 3 feet below ground, and that's sufficient.
I don't envy you guys your work. Good job. Thank you, Ari.
Thank you.
Have you guys got any idea about a shade structure that you can maybe have cooling and water and all that
Yes.
stuff in a shade structure nearby?
Our
Good.
troop has a portable shade tent that we might put everything in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeremy?
Thanks, Ari. Fun project. So one idea, back when I used to do more field work, one of the things that we did, you guys aren't gonna have any trees, and the shade structure, it's gonna be in one spot. You guys are gonna be working on this whole trail loop, so anytime you need to take a break, you're gonna have to hike back to the shade structure just to get some shade. One of the tricks that I learned was to carry a small tarp, and there is sagebrush out there, so you can actually just lay a tarp between sagebrush and sit underneath it.
Oh,
It works pretty good.
Okay.
Just a
That's a
small
really
one.
good idea. Thank you.
You get a tarp and you cut it in half or in thirds, and then just hand them out to your troop.
okay.
The other suggestion I have is to, you as their leader, every couple hours, just tell everybody to stop, sit down, drink some water.
All right. I'll include that in the when I give not a presentation, but a talk at the beginning.
Safety talk,
Yeah.
right? Excellent.
I'll include that, but I'll
I
make
just
sure to
had
do that.
one final question about the signage. It sounds like it's more for directional, so the
Yeah,
idea is
yes.
that we're gonna create, these are gonna be directional loops. So it's not more for wayfinding, it's for direction, like you need to go this way at this
Yes.
intersection? Okay,
That would that would be a better way to put it.
okay.
Yes.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, any public comment? Yes, please feel free to come forward, introduce yourself.
My name is Deborah Stevenson, and I just had a question for Ari. I wasn't quite clear if your scout project was just to place the interpretive signs, and who is producing the interpretive signs, like the ones that you had explaining the ecosystem and the importance of the river
So I made that sign. I did, I designed it, not,
in the computer?
yes,
Okay.
I went and I made a draft and then I finalized it. So that is what we're gonna try and,
You
print.
have a company that's producing it for you? Is it resistant to sun and heat?
Greg, can
I'd
you,
like to have-
maybe,
I'll kind of
Greg
push
might
over
be
to Greg.
able
I'm
to
not
address that.
100% certain on the sign. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So as part of this project, we asked Ari to draft an interpretive sign for us to give us some ideas of what we could put into an interpretive sign. And we will work to finalize it and make it, a really nice sign for, that fits with our signage master plan and that works for that area. And we would have the sign produced. But Ari it's his idea for the draft.
Yeah, no, it's a great idea. I appreciate that. I was just kind of curious because I come from a museum background and outdoor interpretive signs I know are very expensive and, especially when they're weather resistant and scratch resistant, things like that. So that's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other questions, public comments or questions for Ari? Ari, great project, thanks so much.
Thank you.
And we'll look forward to seeing it put together. And if you have any of those supplies left, this committee isn't very well treated by the staff. And so, the sweet treats and the snacks,
somebody said something about that.
I'll see what I can do. Thank you so
very
much for your time tonight. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
since David Navarro was joining us this evening, I did ask him if he was bringing brownies. But that was only at 4 o'clock this afternoon.
if we got brownies, David, from you, it would be a true exception to any kind of activity that's happened at this meeting before, so.
Okay.
Thank you. Nice of you to be here, and thanks for getting Kyle oriented here, or maybe it's the other way around, but, yeah. Okay, and of course, I'm giving the staff a hard time. I don't mean to be anything but teasing you just a little bit. The next item on our agenda is an action item or possible action. For a number of years, staff has been working hard with the families involved with the Old Woods Ranch LLC. Alan Welch, our vice chair, has been most directly involved, but a number of folks have been up there on more than one occasion. We have tonight an action item for possible action regarding a draft conservation easement. And Ann, can you give us the background on that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I may, after a little more research, when I wrote this staff report, I would like to revise the item. We won't necessarily have an action for recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. We actually took an item back on August 4th, 2016, to submit a grant application to the Forest Legacy Program, and it was unanimously approved at that time. So we don't have to go to the board at this time, nor with the conservation easement. So tonight, if we can just discuss the item, conservation easement with the family members, I think that's enough to go forward with submitting the grant application draft and such to the Forest Legacy Program.
Okay, thank you. And if I understand, then, and I guess my view of this was a draft conservation easement
Correct, that is correct.
had been generally agreed upon and was going to be the basis for the grant application, with the understanding that a final document, once everything is in place, would come back to the committee for,
That is correct.
okay.
Yes. So I just have a few slides here for the committee and for the public. The property that we are talking about is owned by the Old Woods Ranch LLC, and we do have a few family members here with us this evening. Some you may recognize, they've joined us before, but maybe we'll do introductions after this. But we are talking about 130 acres on the bottom left part of this map. It is adjacent to this blue-colored parcel, which is, all the blue on the map are city-owned, and this is the Horse Creek Ranch fee title. So that is already owned by the city. Not colored, but just north of us, north of this parcel, is the Horse Creek Ranch Conservation Easement. So that it is all adjacent. Also, just to give perspective for the public, this is Highway 50 at the bottom of the map with the Golf Club Drive in this area. So it's just north of Highway 50. Just a few pictures of the ranch. It does contain a meadow and upland sagebrush and forest habitat. It is in the high priority area of the hillside protection as identified in our open space plan. And it does meet several of the open space criteria: wildlife habitat, natural plant communities, scenic qualities, visibility, water protection, and potentially accessibility. The cost estimates, this is always the big question, where are we? And I underline estimates. I only want to say estimates. This is not a commitment at this point in time. So the average cost per acre, this dollar amount was taken from Michael Fagan's conservation easement. So being right adjacent, but it was 10 years ago. It all depends on what the market conditions are doing at this time, as well as the various restrictions placed on the property. But right now, it's the closest that we can do for a comparable analysis. So taking this cost per acre times the number of acres, 130, that's assuming all 130 are placed in the conservation easement, that would be valued at about $815,000. The Forest Legacy Program will fund up to 75%, with 25% needing to be covered from the Open Space Program. So we're looking at approximately $204,000. And last year, our fiscal budget was $1.2 million. So this is one project we have been saving money for, and we still have a few other projects that we're working towards. So I don't want everyone to look at this dollar amount and say we have a lot of money, but we've been saving it for these type of projects. So some of the timelines, actually the grant application was submitted to the state. We had a draft already, but it was submitted last week. On September 20th, the Nevada Division of Forestry enters the application into what they call a portal for review by the Forest Legacy Program state coordinators. So this is the whole western region. They provide comments. Last year, I was able to call in and listen online as well. I'm muted, so I can't add comments or ask questions at that time, but I can hear the discussion. We have an opportunity to make changes to our application. On October 17th, it will be reviewed by the Nevada Division of Forestry State Resource Advisory Committee. November 18th will be the final submission into the portal for the national scoring panel. So this program is competing nationwide. We are competing with projects up in Montana with grizzly bears and moose and beautiful rivers. So it is a very, very competitive program, but we have been awarded in the past up in Ash Canyon, and it is the only Forest Legacy program in the state. So we know how to do this, I hope. And then next January, so now we're into the next calendar year, it will be reviewed by the national scoring panel. By late spring, they will have a tentative ranking, and by summer, we will know if it will be awarded. It is not uncommon for projects not to be funded the first time around, but then sent back down for more reviews and edits and strengthen the application and funded the second or third time. So we just need to get our application in the door. So on that application, to the regional and state review committees, there is a checkbox, 5 or 6 checkboxes for project readiness. Do you have commitments from the local government? Do you have your preliminary title report? Do you have a draft conservation easement? So that is meeting this criteria, so we can check that box. So this is only a draft. We have been working with the family members for a while. Vice Chair Welch has also joined us in some of the meetings, has walked the property several times. And perhaps maybe Michelle has been taking the lead on this, but maybe she can tell you how close they are. So one other thing I'll add to this timeline. After it's awarded, let's say in 2020, we have up to 2 years to complete the whole acquisition. So that's one of the reasons they ask for a draft conservation easement and project readiness. They want these projects done and out the door. So the closer we can get now, the quicker we can complete the project. As you review this, a lot of it looks like Michael Fagan's. The family reviewed that conservation easement. A lot of the language is the same, but it is tweaked to meet the family needs and desires in the future for their property. Mr. Chair, should we invite the family, or how would you like to proceed?
Yes, members of the family, if you'd like to come up, we welcome you. While you're coming, Ann, let me ask you a question. The Horse Creek Ranch Conservation Easement covers a portion of the meadow.
Yes,
Would this conservation easement with the Horse Creek Ranch Conservation Easement essentially, subject to the potential building envelope, would that pretty much encompass the entire easement area, the entire meadow area?
yes, it would.
So that what you've seen in the pictures and what we really only have a portion of now would potentially be all part of a forest legacy program, so to speak, and our conservation easement, so.
Yes, that is correct.
Hi, how are you?
My name's Michelle Murray. I'm the eldest of the fourth generation of the John Robert Scholes family. So my great-grandfather purchased the land over 100 years ago. We are very proud of this legacy of this great meadow, and we want to, all family members want to keep it that way. As you know, as property goes down the line, it gets harder and harder with different vying ideas to maintain the property. And conservation easement is a way for families to continue ownership and protect the land. And it is really our goal to keep the land as close to what it is today. So we've been working a long time with Ann, and the partnership with Ann and Heather, and also the the stewardship project that we've been doing in maintaining the forest. It's just been a wonderful gift for our family, and we're looking forward just to marching forward and completing this project.
Well, thank you. We're really pleased that you've been able to kind of bring things together, and we're at this point where we're actually looking at a grant application and hopefully something that we can get some funding from. And, we've appreciated the patience, and on the other hand, I'm sure the frustrations that you've been through from the standpoint of trying to get everything put together and trying to make what's a major adjustment in a four-generation family situation. So thank you very much. Don't go away. We may have questions. Committee, any questions or comments that you'd like to make? Margie, is that a yes?
It is a yes. I hope I
Okay.
can say this. I'm going to try and say this quickly because I'm coughing. Thank you for your patience and tenacity in helping us get through this process. It's a long process, and it feels like it must be really long to you guys. So thank you for bearing with us.
Thank you. Any other comments from the committee? Alan?
I just want to extend my thanks to you and the rest of the members of your family for all your work. And it's obviously been a lot of work with a lot of people. And I just really want to extend my thanks for your efforts and tenacity. So thanks.
Yes.
I also would like to say thank you because I actually come from a family very similar to yours in Southern California, and we just sold the last piece of the ranch that my great-grandparents bought back in the 1800s, and we lost it. We were not able to do what you're doing, and so I'm pleased to see that somebody was able to do what you've done. I would also like to say that I hope that we can also come to an agreement to allow a bit of trail to go through so that we can make this the great connection that I'd like to see happen between the Ashta King Trail and Douglas County, so that I know it would be a little bit of an invasion for you, but just that little bit, a trail would be a great connection between the two counties and trails. So I hope that we can get that.
We're definitely open to continued discussion about that, yes.
Thank you. Any other committee comments? Any public comments? Okay, Ann?
Mr. Chair, so one question I have for the committee members as I looked over this draft, if you have any comfort level on discussion, is on page 9, the Carson City's right of refusal. This was a clause that we did add to Michael Fagan's, that when and if he and now Old Woods Ranch choose to sell their property, that Carson City shall be offered that first right of refusal. And it was a few years ago that Michael Fagan decided to put his property on the market. It did come to the committee. We declined. I did take it to the Board of Supervisors as well, and they declined, with the reasoning being that we did purchase a conservation easement. We believe the property is protected, and then that was the end, and Michael has it on the market. Does the committee feel that you would like this clause to remain in this easement?
Is the first right of refusal objectionable to the family?
I don't believe so.
Okay, so it's more of a comfort at this level. Okay. Any feedback from the committee on the first right of refusal language? Yes, Donna.
I'd like to see it stay, just because you never know what's going to happen in the future.
Any disagreement?
No, I would like to see it stay too. I think, I mean, it's just extra protection. It's like you said with Fagan, we don't have to buy it, but it's nice to be given the choice when that time comes.
Okay. All right, does that give you what you need?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, and then I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the draft, but basically it allows for a building area with some strict limitations, similar to what we have in the Fagan, easement, a little more restrictive than the Fagan easement, I think. And I think it's really appreciated that you are actively taking care of the forest items up there and working with the State Division of Forestry on what's a real nice forest resource, but from my last visit up there, is really benefiting from some kind of cleaning and maintenance, and of course, we all worry about fire and that sort of thing, so. Okay, any other comments or questions?
I have a question for
Jeremy?
Ann, I've just got a question. On the price tag that open space might be faced with, do you see it as a lump sum that would be a one-off, or could it be organized or structured so that it was like payments?
In this case, I think we could pay a lump sum. As we look at larger acquisitions, we might look at a payment option.
But I would think we would have one, if not two, budget years
Correct.
after approval before we actually had to fund.
Right. Right. I'm not concerned. I think that given what we have in the coffers versus what this opportunity provides to Carson City, it's a drop in the bucket, and the value is, it's invaluable. And if we're lucky enough to get a trail, we'd work with you guys so that we'd put it in the woods so you wouldn't even be able to see it. I think that the structures and the campground are a fantastic idea. We would make sure that any kind of negotiation with a trail would not get in the way of anybody's time in those spaces.
And from the perspective of the grant application, this effectively is the hole in the donut. And I think that might help with the legacy grant, support the legacy grant side as opposed to just a piece of grizzly bear habitat stuck in the middle of Montana.
That's right. I think that one of the strengths of this application is there's not too many private parcels left up in our forest. So when we can demonstrate that the city has already purchased another conservation easement and other private lands around, we are dedicated to this conservation preservation goal.
Great. Any final comments? Joanne?
Yeah, just because I don't know this program that well, and we're talking about the strengths of our application, having in our conservation easement the reserved rights for the family to have residential use and a recreational camp, does that at all affect the strength of the application? Or, when you're comparing it to other places that don't have any proposed or reserved development rights on them?
So.
I don't understand why you want that. I'm just curious.
Yep, not at all. And this draft that you're reviewing, we did review 2 or 3 weeks ago with Division of Forestry. One of the comments that she had, it's not a problem to allow some development, but where it's calling out, I can't remember, the 1 acre, 1 housing site around the meadow, they need to know, is it here or here? You can't just say somewhere in here, but you need to call out 2 or 3 locations. Is that right, Michelle?
Yeah. And there is, in the guidelines, there is allowance for a certain number of square footage development in the Forest Legacy Grant guidelines.
Yes, Donna?
I don't know how, it sounds like they are looking at the details of this document a lot more depth than I thought they might be. So a couple of things is, I don't know if it would help in the fact that we are talking about putting a trail through there that will help access and connect other trails and everything. So the way it's worded in here, that trail is not possible.
Is there a particular page that you're looking at?
I don't remember exactly, but it says that there's no public access at all. So you might look at that, changing that because but the other thing you might, on the very last page, there is a typo that you might want to look at. Number 6 regarding tree cutting, last line, it says, it should say prevent instead of present. I don't know if they're going to get that detailed, but, just in case.
So Anne, if I can clarify, they don't actually look at the conservation easement document. It's just checked off that it's marked.
Oh, okay.
And then once we are approved, then they get a little more granular on it. So the
Okay.
initial review board doesn't look at it.
Okay.
That's
I wasn't sure if they're going to be looking at this document
But
in that much
it's
detail.
good to have it corrected. And then regarding public access, the Forest Legacy Grant does grant extra points for some public access. So we have, as a family, have been discussing that. And obviously, the trail we know is very important to the Open Space Committee. So we're definitely looking into that and how we can make that work. And we've also been in conversation with University of Nevada Agriculture Department and Cooperative Extension, and maybe some sort of higher education partnership. Some of their master's students maybe using our land as site experiments and that sort of
Yeah,
thing.
I did see that in here, and that looked very interesting, and I could see where that would bring extra points too. Wherever we can add some points.
That's right.
The access language is number 10 on PDF page 9.
Yeah, it sounds like that's obviously still an item for discussion, but at this point, for the legacy grant application, it does not appear to be critical. Obviously, we'll have to work through that with time. Alan, did you have something?
Since the trail issue has come up several times, Greg, would you want to describe the trail that you and I guess Jeff scouted that would achieve the goal of getting us from Golf Club Drive up to Ashton Kings, or the Kings Canyon trailhead that would be possible without actually going onto this property?
Certainly. So I'm familiar with the families, the area that you have for family gatherings and barbecues and things like that. And so we scouted a possible alignment that would, we believe would be above that area and hidden enough in the trees that it would be not, your private area would not be visible from the trail. And as thick as the brush is in that area, we don't foresee that there would be incursions from the trail down to your property, because the trail would be the obvious way through that very, very difficult terrain. So we're very comfortable that we can build a trail that will, meet your objectives of privacy for the property.
I think as we go forward, obviously, we're not here tonight to talk about the trail, although it's important that we make it clear. But perhaps, Greg, if it would be helpful, some time with the family on the ground might help everybody get the same perspective and have the same understanding of where a possible trail location might be that hopefully would be workable from both the family's perspective as well as from open space. Okay, any other comments? Any public comment? We appreciate members of the family here, and thank you very much for all you're doing and the work you're doing internally as well as externally. So nice to have you here.
Thank you for all your support and time also.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can she do introductions of her family?
Oh, absolutely.
So there's five siblings, and so three branches are represented. I'm Helen Gifford, and Helen Gifford's family, and my Uncle Charlie is of that family. I have Paula, who's here, and her grandfather was owner of the property. Grandfather. And then I have Jeff, John, and Telsha Scholes, who's and Jeff is responsible, one of the primary cattle guys up there.
Great. Thank you for coming, and thank you for your cooperation and working with us as a family. I know it's a challenge, and we're excited about this progress. So thanks again.
Welcome. It is quite a challenge.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else on that agenda item? Do we need an action? Okay. All right. Next item, number 3D. Possible action, discussion, and possible action regarding a commitment from open space budget for an amount not to exceed $20,000 to be used as a cash match on recreational trails program grant application for the construction, of the Lincoln Bypass Trail and Capitol to Tahoe Trail. Ann, or is that Greg?
I'll go ahead and take it. So the Lincoln Bypass and the Capitol to Tahoe trails are two proposed alignments that when paired with, or in conjunction with the existing Ashton Kings Trail, will provide single-track, non-motorized access from Carson City to the Lake Tahoe Basin for the very first time out of Carson City. It's a project that's been in the planning for very many years. We've spent the last 2 summers conducting the botanical, biological, and cultural reviews. We're expecting those reports to be submitted to the Forest Service and Nevada Division of State Parks shortly. We've done one minor realignment to avoid goshawk nesting sites, but we believe that the existing alignment now is going to be good to go. So with that, we believe that we can start moving forward looking forward to beginning construction. We're hoping sometime in 2020. And so muscle powered, our nonprofit partner in this project is submitting a recreational trails program grant application. The pre-app is due this Friday. And as part of that, Rec Trails requires a 20% match. And so they're looking for help in coming up with that match. They will be able to provide some match in the form of in-kind labor, but they do need some cash. And so they're asking for a $20,000 or up to $20,000 as match against the grant should they get be successful in getting that the grant. And I should mention that one of the Muscle Part board members, Pete Donges, is with us tonight in case you did have questions for Muscle Part as well. So.
Thank you, Greg. And just in clarification before we go to committee questions, the $100,000 is the actual construction of the trail? Or putting it in place, so to speak? I think most of it's, is it there now but needs work? Help me understand what the money, how the money's set and what we're looking at here.
Okay, so we have a proposed alignment, and we're finishing up with all the required studies to satisfy NEPA and the National Environmental Policy Act and State Historic Preservation Office, but we have not broken ground. And so this grant application will be for actual construction, and it'll be phased in. It's going to have to be at least a couple-year project because it's a big one. We're looking at about 12 miles of trail in very, very remote and rough terrain. So no, nothing's been started yet, but we're hoping to be able to break ground sometime in 2020. And so the grant that Muscle Part is putting in or applying for now will be for like phase 1 or for this year's or 2020's construction.
Okay, so this would be, the idea is this would be our contribution to the full construction amount, but it might take several years for it to be accomplished. Is that?
We're thinking 2 years.
2 years, okay. And what you are looking for tonight is a commitment, recommendation to the Board of Supervisors, and it sounds like realistically, it might be over 2 budget years that money would be requested, potentially. I mean, $20,000 is something we could consider obligating, but at the same time, it may not even be that much out of the current budget, if I'm hearing correctly.
I think it likely would be that much.
Okay, they need that up front.
Mm-hmm, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and correct. You're correct in that could easily be requested again next year.
Okay, well, that answers my question. Members of the committee, questions or comments?
Yeah.
Jerry?
I think we should go ahead and pass this motion because it's already been budgeted, and we're all seem to be in agreement that it's necessary, so let's just move on with it.
Okay, other comments? Donna?
I'm a little bit confused. This is the first I've heard of it, and I'm on Muscle Powered's board. I was always my understanding that this was being funded by the CTA. The Carson.
So the CTA is funding the studies, and they've committed up to $80,000 for the NEPA and the SHPO studies, but the actual construction hasn't been addressed yet. And so that's with this request, and I guess the reason maybe that you haven't heard is because it's come down rather quickly because this year is the first year that Rec Trails has required a pre-application, and the due date is August 23rd. So it's been kind of a rush on the part of Jeff Potter and Pete Jones to get the application together.
So is the plan to do some mechanized on this trail? Is that what's going on here?
Yes, and Jeff got estimates from a mechanized builder so that he can put projections into the grant application.
Okay.
Okay, any other comments or questions from the committee? Jeremy?
The map that we're looking at in the agenda, does that represent the essentially the final alignment? because I was working with Jeff just a couple of weeks ago, and my understanding was that there was some negotiation with the landowner in that private parcel in the middle that would eliminate that really switchbacky section. And it's a little more of a gentle climb. And he had actually had me rearrange this map to reflect that.
That's correct. We have, in fact, I was working on that today it's at the Mansfield property. And Dr. Mansfield we have walked that alignment with him, and he is very supportive of us doing that across his property. But there is also the matter of he's seeking some kind of legal access on the North Kings Canyon Road, a portion of which belongs to Carson City. A portion of it also belongs to the Forest Service. So he's working through his consultant both with Carson City and the Forest Service to get that legal access. But if it didn't happen, then we would still go with the original alignment. And so we conducted all of the cultural and biological and botanical surveys on the original alignment, which goes through Forest Service property, and we're keeping that. We're actually have both of those possibilities on the application, but we want to make sure that if we can't go with the private easement, that we're still going to go ahead with the original alignment.
Yeah, that makes sense, that it's an alternative. I guess potentially as part of NEPA clearance and construction considerations, if you were to construct from the top down, or just, this thing's going to be phased out over several years, by the time it finally gets to this piece and maybe it's resolved and we could go with the preferred alignment.
That's correct, yeah.
Thank you, Jeremy. Any other questions or comments from the committee?
I have another one.
All right, Donna?
It looks like this is actually going to connect to the TRT. I thought that wasn't going to happen. Did the TRT change their mind?
It ends at Laxall Flat, which is kind of a convergence of a bunch of trails. And when you get to the very western end of our proposed trail, you go, oh, there's the TRT over there. So it doesn't technically connect to it, but it gets you there.
Okay, are there any public comments? All right, this is an action item. It's a request to recommend to the Board of Supervisors the funding of $20,000. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve a commitment in the amount not to exceed $20,000 to be used as a match against the 2020 Recreational Trails Program Grant application as presented.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion and a second. Any public comment? All right, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Slightly ahead of that, going to the board, will be a request to make an application for a grant. Is that you presenting, Greg, again? We've kind of touched on that, but it's our next agenda item. Canyon Road, and I
That's
apologize.
a different grant, and actually this grant, because it's being submitted by Muscle Powered, it wouldn't go to us to the board.
Okay, back to you, Ann, on the grant application request of the Board of Supervisors for construction repairs to Kings Canyon Road.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So approximately in the same area as the Lincoln Bypass Trail, this is for repair of Kings Canyon Road, the dirt segment of road from the Waterfall Trailhead, 2 miles up the dirt segment to Horse Creek Ranch. So repairs on the road would help facilitate our access to the 2.5 properties up there, the half being the conservation easement on Horse Creek Ranch. So this project is on Forest Service land. Our ordinance, Chapter 13, does allow us to spend money, Carson City money, on federal lands. And this is actually the second phase, sort of the project. Kings Canyon Road was washed out from the heavy snowfall of 2017. It has continued to get worse. The Forest Service is responsible for maintenance. We submitted a grant application to the Nevada Commission on Off-Highway Vehicles a few years ago for repair. At that time, they realized also it was the old Lincoln Highway and cultural surveys needed to be completed. So they only awarded half the funding request, and it went straight to the Forest Service to start their engineering design and cultural review, not the whole Section 106. They only budgeted enough to review. So we'll still have to complete that Section 106. And we're still in discussions with the Forest Service on how this repair will happen. One of the easements or rights-of-way from the Forest Service did say Carson City had the right to do maintenance on roads. I thought there was somewhere in there that said, except for Kings Canyon Road because of the cultural resources, so we're still working out those details. But there are a few different requirements that the application will require from us because it is on Forest Service land. One difference that you'll see in this action item compared to the one before is the different percentage match. The Lincoln Bypass required a 20% match. This requires 5%. The difference being because it's a diversified recreation, so motorized and non-motorized, it's a lower percentage, which is good for us. At the moment, we only have a repair cost of $150,000. That's probably high, but I thought it would be better to throw a high number in there rather than a low estimate. So 5% would be $7,500. Very little, actually. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Ann. So what you're looking for is committee action on a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors to proceed with the grant application. And with it comes a potential $7,500 impact if the grant is funded. Is that right?
That's correct, thank you.
Okay. Questions or comments from the committee? Any public comment? All right. Do we have a motion?
I move to recommend to the Board of Supervisors submittal of a grant application to the Recreational Trails Program for construction and repairs to Kings Canyon Road.
Okay, on that discussion, staff, do we want to have a dollar item in that motion?
That's true.
If you'd like, Mr. Chair.
I would suggest we have the language approximately $7,500 or something, because the board's going to wonder what the number is. So, is that agreeable to the maker of the motion and the second?
Amended as such.
Okay. We have a public comment. No? All right. Is there any public comment on the motion? All right. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, the motion passes. Hi, Jen. What have you got for us?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. I don't have really anything to update you on that's not in your packet. So if you have any questions on the Board of Supervisors actions or anything else, I'd be happy to answer your questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Jennifer? Any public comments? It's a real chance to give her a hard time. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Public comments, we just went through that. Any activities, projects, and grants? Open space projects within the Carson River. Ann?
Again, the staff report has a number of projects, details on projects, the biocontrol. And a lot of these projects are led by Lindsay. So I'd like to give her recognition and kudos on a lot of hard work. The Buzzy's Ranch Conservation Plan, I do have an update from the time this was written. We are still working on the conservation plan. We are working closely with Agricultural Research Service to look at various dry land grasses that could grow better out there when we lose some of our irrigation. They did start some chemical control because we'll need to kind of kill off some grasses, some areas, so we can put some other plant species in there for testing. And we will, we have 2 1-acre plots that we will start research probably within the next month.
Great, thank you.
Updates on Carson River Canyon open space, the Sniplama Trails Project. Greg Bergeron is actually our lead, but Lindsay also has some aspects of that when it comes to the natural resources. She joined Joanne out there on some wetland studies. She also joined other members of Resource Concepts and Endow for bird surveys, looking at avian species. East Silver Saddle Ranch, we had a fire out there, I think, on our last meeting. So while we were sitting in here, we had a fire burning out there. But what you will hear at our next OSAC meeting is an Eagle Scout is looking at this burn as a conservation project and doing some reseeding with some grasses, maybe even planting some willows and doing some riverbank stabilization. So Lindsay's working with him on that project. On the subject of fire and kind of in the river area, Moffett Open Space, we had a half-acre fire over there. And like East Silver Saddle, the cause is undetermined, likely man-caused. We didn't have any lightning yesterday, but we were out there to assess the damage. Fortunately, it is just a half-acre. The Eurasian water milfoil with our intern, Kara Bergeron, was very interesting. As you can see in the picture, she had 4 buckets, and then she did 4 different treatments with the covers. And the black cover, so the black and the clear are kind of like solarization, similar to what they're doing up in Lake Tahoe in the bottom barriers. And with the black cover, all the Eurasian milfoil just kind of disintegrated. So this is what's fun with research projects. You can implement different treatments. And so maybe next summer we'll actually try one of these in the ditch and see how well it works. But it's just amazing, just it disintegrated, just nothing left of the plant. A number of events throughout the area and at Silver Saddle Ranch. A few updates on no updates on the motorized area as it pertains to Golden Eagles, but later on in the Trails report, Greg had some updates with the Novak project, and then we have the stewardship plan with SHPO, and that's all on that item, Mr. Chair. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Any questions for Ann? Yes.
The 2 fires, did you find a lot of trash left behind that you need to clean up?
We did not.
Any interesting finds, though, like historic, yeah. Please.
No.
Historical finds or
Yeah,
anything?
unfortunately, that can be the exciting thing with fires sometimes.
Yeah.
Put it in covers, but no.
Okay.
And actually at Moffett, we had a fire in the same location about 10 years ago.
Okay. Let me know if are you getting much trash along the East Silver Saddle?
We're still getting some, yes.
Let me know if you need a trash mob out there,
Thank you, will do.
because I'm always looking for sites.
Okay, thank you, Donna. Any other questions of Ann? Did that cover 4A and 4B, Ann? Or I'm sorry,
That was
4B and
4B.
4C?
Nope, 4C is a separate report.
Okay, why don't you go ahead with that?
So 4C is the remainder of Carson City outside of the river corridor. So just updates on Ash Canyon Road. We completed the annual maintenance this year. The Bee City USA project of the new Bee Hotel over behind the Cancer Center and along the new Foothill Trail. The Horse Creek Ranch, both vessel removal. I don't know if Member Everson would like to make any comments, but you can see our collection of bags collected that day. Updates on the Kings Canyon Road and Trailhead projects. Land acquisition, Clear Creek, the appraisal is in progress right now. Possibly next month, I can let you know what that estimated value is. Parks and Recreation Month, Michael Fagan was recognized for his generous donation to the open space program. And while he could not be here at the Board of Supervisors to accept it, we did give that to him during the Bull Thistle dig. Just a few updates on personnel. Our AmeriCorps members And let's see, the Carson City, we changed the name from the weed coordinator to the invasive plants coordinator. And I think with that change, we had a great pool to invite in for interviews. And we have selected a lady who is now going through her background checks for the city. And so we'll announce that when she has that cleared. And a picture of Kara Berggren, the natural resource intern this summer. And she has now returned to UNR, I think for her junior year of school. as a
Clearly,
wildlife major.
one of the better-looking members of that family.
And she had an amazing summer as a student, working with Lindsay. Kara joined Lindsay on the bird surveys along the Carson River, as well as Greg's trail project on the Capitol to Tahoe project, going out at 10 o'clock at night to listen for owls, and I think osprey up there as well. She did some of the weed projects, trail projects, so an all-around internship. So thank you for supporting funding for our intern. We've had 2 great ones, and I think they're learning as much as we are.
It's great to have young folks get exposed to resources and resource values and what's important, so that's great. These staff reports are really nice, and I'm wondering if there's some way we could get them more widely distributed, or at least some of the elements. Maybe there's something in the the limited regular editions of the newspaper or something like that, but there's a lot going on, and I think it's really helpful.
Maybe on the website.
I was just going to ask, there was talk about a newsletter for the parks and open space, and I just wondered if they could maybe be part of that gets disseminated around too.
Is that the annual report?
No, I thought there was talk that there was going to be a quarterly newsletter.
I get it.
Bruce, is your objective to just distribute these in our community, in Carson City?
Yeah, I was, I wasn't thinking particularly just Carson, but more the idea that we've got a lot going. And the website is probably a real good place for a lot of that to happen.
Okay. Right. Carson Now, obviously, that's low-hanging fruit, just to provide a link to these PDFs right in Carson Now.
Great idea. Yes, Donna?
One thing I'd like to say is we need better shovels for bull thistle. I had a bad shovel. I had to go get a different.
Put in a requisition. No, thank you for your efforts too, by the way, more than once on the trash mobbing and the bull thistle and other things, so. Okay, anything else on 4C, Ann?
That is all, Mr. Chair.
Okay, item 4D is our Trails Coordinator.
You want to cover it while you're here? Since Greg is still with us this evening.
All right, so I was at a conference for the California Trails and Greenways in San Diego a few months ago, and kind of the, I guess the theme of the conference was making options available to adaptive athletes. We had a couple of speakers, one who was an extreme athlete who lost the use of his legs, but he was able to recreate using a bicycle similar to the one you see on page 1 of my report. And so it got me thinking that we have the ability to provide some of those options here in Carson City. We have a number of paved pathways, of course, and those are the low-hanging fruit. But we also have trails that may be available to similar, to cycle similar to this if we can just maybe eliminate a couple of pinch points or something. So if you have a trail, like for example, on the Fifth Street project, we're building trails that are 4 feet wide. And so they would be challenging options for a cycle like this. And so it got me thinking that we need to highlight that and put that on our websites and our maps, and to try to make our trail system as inclusive as we possibly can. So anyway, I'm going to be just doing some research on that, and we're going to move forward with that. We've kind of discussed the Lincoln or the Lincoln bypass and the Capitol to Tahoe trails. Centennial Park trails, actually, we're kind of moving forward a little bit quicker than we had expected with that. We have proposals to make connections to Washoe Lake State Park and to Virginia City. And we've got the Great Basin Institute has gotten involved, and we've got BLM on board. And there's a lot of support now from the BLM for this. So we're hoping that we can have Great Basin Institute be the applicant on grant funding for this project because it's a tri-county project. It's difficult for us or even for Muscle Power to be the applicant, but if you have an organization like Great Basin Institute that is statewide, they can move forward with some of this. So we're hoping that we can start moving that forward with looking at the NEPA and the SHPO projects maybe in the coming year. We had a Eagle Scout project at the Sea Hill Trailhead, which was fabulous. That project included resurfacing of the trailhead there, and I think the Eagle candidate's grandfather, who has a construction business, placed I think it was over 100 tons of aggregate base on that. So it was a very nice project. Prison Hill motorized area, we're moving forward on that. We've got, our consultants have been working hard this summer on site plans, and which are not quite available they're not ready for public viewing yet, but they're moving forward, and we're partnering with the Pine Nut Mountains Trails Association for a major cleanup on October 6th, and that'll be in advance of the National Off-Highway Vehicle Conservation Council's mobile workshop at the south end of Prison Hill the following week. Mexican Dam, Mexican Ditch Inlet, safe passage. We received a $25,000 grant from the Carson Water Subconservancy District to help offset costs for construction of a safe passage around the Mexican Dam that will hopefully allow us to extend the Carson River Aquatic Trail into Carson Valley. And somewhere down the road, we would also like to extend or develop a loop trail all the way around Prison Hill, and this will facilitate that possibility. The Fifth Street Trailhead project, we're nearing completion on both the parking lot and the trails on that. And Prison Hill Survey, which member Masad has been involved with. We're conducting a survey of the public that involves access to Prison Hill. And we asked questions about trailheads, how do people get there, what do they do when they get there, what do we need to do moving forward with a management plan for Prison Hill. And that survey has been completed, and we're reviewing that now, and we'll be having further meetings to discuss that.
And how many responses did
We had, I think, it was 200?
Close to
Read about close to 200 responses. Yeah, it was a very good response.
Nice.
We're in 30%, or we're reviewing 30% plans for the Snipplemuck Carson River Trails project, and that's looking really good. That's going to be an exciting trail system. That's going to really give us a lot of loop possibilities for the whole Carson River area. And that's really about it. So, any questions? Oh, well, okay. So, the Tahoe East Shore Trail, that's very exciting project that was completed with an extension or with a trail that goes from Incline Village to Sand Harbor, multi-use paved trail, fabulous trail with just outstanding views. And the next phase of that project is going to go from Sand Harbor to Spooner Summit with, and of course, it'll pass through rural Carson City. So we're involved in review of the EA for that. And construction tentatively scheduled for 2021, 2022. So really exciting stuff happening at Lake Tahoe.
Great. Thank you,
questions?
Greg. Any questions or comments from the committee?
Quick one.
Go ahead, Jeremy.
Just a quick idea that I had about your very first item on adaptive riders. It seems wise, given the timing of trying to get more involved with adaptive compliant trails, that language could be included with the grant for the Lincoln Highway. That it would be, the fixing that road would provide access. Right now, I would imagine a couple of those cuts would not be, it would be, I attended the same conference you did, and I recall there being like 4 different categories, and the first 2 were unassisted and the last 2 were assisted. So in its current state with those cuts, they would need to be assisted, but once the road is fixed, essentially, it would provide access for somebody essentially all the way up to Spooner.
Donna, did you have a comment or question?
Well, a couple of things. You went to the conference too at Viejas? You went right through our ranch to get to it. It was originally the property just to the west of Viejas was our ranch originally. A couple of things I wanted to say, now if I can remember them. There goes my brain. The 5th Street Trailhead. Are we going to have a signage marking the trail up to the north face of the Prison Hill pretty soon?
To the North Loop, yes, there'll be signage marking that the existing trail is a user-built trail that has slopes that are in excess of 20%. So we do have an alignment for a much better trail that will probably average 8%. But we still need to go through the cultural survey to make sure that we're okay to build it. But we'll go ahead and put a sign on the existing trail. So, I mean, people really like that trail, and it provides good access to the North Loop.
Okay, because, it's still a duck. And the Mexican Dam Inlet Safe Passage, when is that going to be built? Can't wait.
We missed we had a permit to build it, and then there were some issues and delays, and the permit expired, and so there's a possibility that the codes changed as well, and so we're having to go through and review that and apply for a new permit, and we may have to make some changes to the details of the plan. So anyway, bottom line is there's a new application for a new building permit. Once we get that, then we're going to move forward with finding a contractor to do this.
So you're going to have to cut into the hillside, or how are you going to do that?
Well, this project just includes providing, it's essentially a bridge across the Mexican ditch at the inlet. And it'll be equestrian friendly and small watercraft friendly. Once it gets across to the south side, then we are going to have to cut into the hill a little bit to widen that trail. And then ultimately, we're hoping that we could go for maybe a SNPLMA grant like we did with the Carson River Trail system for a very user-friendly trail that would go complete the loop all the way around Prison Hill.
Thank you. Other comments or questions? Alan?
Just a comment, since we're talking about Eagle Scouts and signage. I just noticed that we have the Eagle Scout signs that were put up Ash Canyon are pretty well thrashed. And I don't know if there's an opportunity when you start talking to Eagle Scouts, whether in terms of new projects, you might bring that one up, because those things are in pretty sad shape, as well as perhaps including some of the ones along Silver Saddle, along the river. I noticed those are all, the sun has not been kind to those signs.
Other comments or questions? Jeremy? Okay, any public comment? Yes, Ron, come on up.
Ron Moe, citizen. Thank you. I'll just say NOHVCC, their mobile workshop at Prison Hill in the motorized area. What are they going to be doing? Are they in, I don't understand what that will be in. Is that in addition to what Mark and whoever's doing?
Sure. So the National Off-Highway Vehicle Conservation Council is the partner that we're working with on redoing the south end of Prison Hill. I mean, obviously, it's been the area has been largely unmanaged for decades, and we want to manage that area. And Novak has been a great partner in moving that forward. They're having their national conference in Reno the week of it's somewhere around the 17th of October. And so in conjunction with that, they want to bring their group down to south end of Prison Hill to showcase what they've been doing down there. And they'll be down there for, I believe it's one day? Yeah, 1 day.
Okay. So there isn't any special input
No,
to the members? They're just-
what they're doing does not have an effect on the project. It's they're just showing their project off to their group.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Any other comments or questions, public comments? Okay. Item number 5, member announcements and requests for information. Margie?
I wanted to make a comment that thanks to our invasive species coordinators, or whatever, what are we calling them now? Invasive plant coordinators? Pepperweed got treated in the field between Stewart and Roop Streets there at the Bryan Building. I've been worrying it to death and it wasn't affected at all. And then Buildings and Grounds came along and I think they were the ones who finished it. But whoever did that treatment, thank you. I was really getting a little bit panicked as the flowers were starting to get ready to seed. I still think there may be a viable seed bank there because of the time of the treatment, but at least we got them knocked back again. I don't want us to look like the Truckee Meadows. So thank you all.
Anything else? Jeremy?
Yeah, I've got one request for information. I spoke with a colleague recently, and she received she lives at the base of Sea Hill, and she received a notification from the planning department that there's a parcel on Sea Hill that is being considered for rezoning by the planning department for the development of a cell tower. This would, to me, seem like a hot button issue to open space, and I would think that it would be appropriate to put that in front of all of us, in conjunction with whatever the planning department is doing before any kind of decision is made. So anyway, I would like that to be something that could potentially be distributed amongst us to maybe even put it on an agenda for the next meeting.
I will look into that question. What I do know is there was a special use permit, not versus a rezone, but I'll double check that for the cell tower.
Okay, yeah, I guess my concern is that that entire parcel would be rezoned as something other than open space, which would be of concern.
So if it's the same parcel, and I can certainly share my letter via email or whatever is the appropriate method. But what we did comment on, and I'll look into it just to see if I missed something, is there was a special use permit for a wireless communications container and antennas on a private parcel right next to Sea Hill. And so our comments were to at least bury the container or paint it a brown or neutral color so it couldn't be seen on our hillsides. So when we provide comments, it has to be relevant to our jurisdiction.
Okay, great.
As it pertains to open space. So
What
that's
what
I-
about access? Would they just use existing access?
Oh, and I
to-
did comment that in our Unified Pathways Master Plan and the updates from last year, March 2018, there are several single-track trails in the area, just to be aware of desired access.
Okay.
So I can share that letter.
Right. My colleague's concern, really, yeah, I hadn't seen, obviously, I don't live at the base of Sea Hill, I haven't seen a notification. Her words were that it was a rezoning, not, I didn't hear the word special use permit.
And it will be going to the Planning Commission. I don't know what date, but you're welcome to attend the Planning Commission
Okay,
as
yep.
well.
Thank you.
And could you kind of summarize what that was, or what the situation was, so that there's no confusion over special use permit versus rezoning? Just, and maybe a location in an email, perhaps,
Well,
to the
in an
committee
email?
members?
Yes.
Is that,
Yeah, that's perfect, thank you.
anything else from the committee? Any other direction? Last one.
That's my very last one. I wanted to thank Carson City Jazz and Beyond and the Friends of Silver Saddle Ranch. And this may seem a little bit disingenuous, but also the Carson City Open Space staff for a terrific venue and event yesterday out at Silver Saddle Ranch. It was truly delightful. I saw you guys out there. We were having fun. We were enjoying the music. There's no place quite as beautiful, I think, out there. It was very, very pleasant. And if you want to report on the avian surveys, we saw 2 bald eagles take off from the field right next to the red house, and they were hunting or else just playing in the breezes. I don't know which.
Thank you, Margie. You get one more comment if you need it. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Okay, future agenda items. Anything further for agenda items? Any public comment?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes.
I would like to discuss one of these projects. I think many members in the community would like to know this, but Gabe Crossman will be repairing, I guess, would be the right word, the C on Sea Hill. And he will be doing that in just a few weeks' time. So typically, we like to invite the Eagle Scouts prior to their project, but because of the timing, he will do it first and then come to the committee afterwards.
Who is that?
So that's another Eagle Scout
Gabe
project?
Crossman.
Dave Crossman, you say?
Gabe, G-A-B-E.
Okay, Gabe.
Should we bring him brownies?
Okay, that's great. Any other comments from the committee?
I thought of one more.
Go ahead, Jeremy.
Sorry, I'm a loudmouth tonight, I guess. And do you happen to have an update or maybe just a reminder of where we're at with the Carson City naming objective?
Yes, so it is now scheduled for October. I just couldn't get the surveys out, and we had a whole new system of surveys that we are learning with the Prison Hill survey. So just trying to figure out the new system. So I'm hoping to get that in the next week or two before our AmeriCorps
Awesome,
member
thank you.
Kristen
Yep,
leaves.
just as long as it's rolling along.
It is, thank you. And the Washoe Tribe is very interested as well. They were calling for an update.
Great.
Okay, any other comments from the committee? Public comments? Okay. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Okay, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.